Number one, you can only learn by actually working on motherboards. One of the things that I made a big mistake with early on was just watching YouTube for hundreds and hundreds of hours. Don't get me wrong, I learned tons of stuff from various YouTube channels, which we'll go over later in this video. But honestly, I could have spent half of that time working on motherboards and I would have learned 10 times as much as I learned by just staring at my phone screen for hundreds, probably thousands of hours. Actually getting your hands dirty with work on a board is knowledge you just cannot gain by watching other people do it. Take the knowledge you learn online and implement it as fast as you can on a physical board in front of you. Obviously, if you're just starting, work on stuff you don't care about, and then maybe move on to buying broken devices, broken consoles, and fix those and resell them. But don't just sit there and watch YouTube all day and expect to learn how to do microsoldering. It took me way too long to buy my first few consoles to actually start repairing and working on. And I wish I started working on physical devices way sooner. What's up guys, my name's Zach and I run a microsoldering and repair business here in Quebec, Canada. I really appreciate the support on the channel so far. I'm so glad you guys are enjoying the videos. And I just wanted to take a minute and sit down and talk about 10 of the things I wish I knew before I started doing this kind of stuff. I've always learned to do things myself, doing my own research online. But with microsoldering, it was a bit of a different experience than a lot of the other stuff I learned on my own, just in the sense that everything is constantly changing and growing in this space, because technology is constantly growing and changing. So you have to really be able to keep up. And for whatever reason, it seems like there's a lot of people in the space. Not everybody. I think the large majority of people are very kind and collaborative. But there are a chunk of people in this space who are very gatekeepy about microsoldering. And I don't understand why. It makes you feel like you can't ever learn how to do it. Or it makes you feel like you're always going to be doing stuff the wrong way. Because there's a lot of people who have opinions. And rightly so, because we're working on technology that either works or doesn't work. So there is a lot of stuff that you can do wrong. That being said, I think there is way too much gatekeeping in the space of repair. And I want to kind of break that mold with my videos and try to cater to people who were in my position a few years ago, where I was just sort of lost. I didn't know where to start with things. There's a lot of really great educational content on YouTube, but there's a lot of stuff that just goes unsaid and just is assumed that you know. So today I want to dive into the top 10 things that I wish I knew before diving into this space. Number 2, where to get tools or parts or things like that. When I started, I had this misconception that AliExpress was just cheap Chinese crap and wasn't a good place to be buying tools or parts or things. This was totally wrong. A large majority of the tools and things that you're going to find on Amazon are going to be the exact same stuff that comes out of China, or it's going to be worse, and in either case it's going to be more expensive. That's not to say you should buy everything from AliExpress, but there is a lot of really great high quality tools, and I highly recommend you don't just disregard AliExpress as a cheap Chinese marketplace. You can save quite a lot of money and get better tools, honestly, in some cases, by buying stuff from there. You have to keep in mind a lot of electronic devices are manufactured in China, and a lot of the new tools and new stuff coming out for repair are from that part of the world. So you really can't just disregard all of that stuff as cheap Chinese crap, because in reality, in this space specifically, it's really not the case. That being said, there are a few things that I don't recommend buying from China. One of the main things I wouldn't recommend buying from there is an ultrasonic cleaner. I'll be making a whole separate video about ultrasonic cleaning and we'll dive into that stuff. But there are specific tools and things that you just don't want to cheap out on. And a good quality ultrasonic cleaner, for example, is next to impossible to find on AliExpress. So I don't want to go ahead and say that AliExpress is for everything. There's also a lot of stuff I get on Amazon. Things like thermal paste or chemicals like isopropyl alcohol or ultrasonic cleaning fluid. All that stuff I don't buy from overseas. I either get that stuff locally or buy online from a reputable seller from North America. Number 3, just because a tool works well for your favorite YouTuber does not mean it's going to work well for you. I really want to stress this point with my channel because I'm doing a lot of tool reviews and I love tools and I love buying new tools, seeing how they work, seeing how they impact my workflow, whether or not I like them. So you're going to find a lot of the videos I upload on this channel are tool related videos because that's just what I like doing for myself. Even if I wasn't making videos, I would be buying all of the new tools that I see on AliExpress pop up that I think are going to impact my workflow in a positive way. But I want to stress that like just because I like something does not in any way mean that you are also going to like these tools. I try to do my best to point out the things I don't like as well as the things I do like. And obviously this doesn't just go for my channel, this goes for any other channel. We'll get into this point later, but you'll find a lot of people have very different approaches to repair, and I think this is a very good thing. But this also means that I, as a technician, am going to appreciate and enjoy various kinds of tools more than other people, and other people are going to appreciate other kinds of tools more than me. So don't just like blindly buy the stuff that I'm reviewing on my videos, and don't just blindly buy the stuff that other people are reviewing or recommending on their videos. Definitely do your own research. This goes back to point number 1, but start working on boards and actually discover what you enjoy tool-wise and buy that stuff. You are going to and should have a unique approach to repair, and that goes for the kinds of tools you enjoy using as well as everything else. Number 4, I want to say like 90% of good soldering comes from understanding how heat works and how heat dissipates. This is something I think took way longer than it should have to get through my thick skull, was that a small soldering iron tip transfers heat slower than a large soldering iron tip. This sounds pretty straightforward, but I find that a lot of people struggle with this. So let me try to give you an example here. So let's say, for example, that you're trying to put solder on this side of this capacitor, and you have the choice between these two tips. Surface area is everything here. Now I'll just go ahead and say that both of these are sufficient to be soldering this side of the cap. That being said, you can't just come in here and put the tip like this and expect this to do a good job, because you have all of this surface area on your iron that just goes unused. Instead, you should be coming in and touching this entire side to the side of the capacitor, not just the tip. This right here is going to transfer significantly more heat to the board and to the capacitor than this is. Similarly, if you were going to use this conical tip, this is not going to do you much good. But if instead you just come in and touch the side, you're going to have a lot more luck with this kind of approach. Similarly, if we take a look at each side of this capacitor, we have two sides. One side, which is going to be ground here, and then the other side here, which is connected to this small trace right here. You have to understand that this larger side connected to ground is going to be more difficult to heat up because this ground plane is larger than this really tiny trace right here on the left side of this capacitor. And you can heat this entire trace up from this point way easier than you can heat up this large ground plane right here by just heating up this side of the cap. So even on this individual component right here, each side of this capacitor is going to behave differently when you put your iron on it. Understanding heat and surface area of components and of your tools is going to take you to the next level with your soldering abilities, and it's going to be the difference between a crappy joint and a nice solid soldering joint. You can take this point even farther by talking about hot air. Understanding how heat works and dissipates through the board is extremely important. And also understanding your specific hot air station, how it works as far as airspeed and heat goes, is super important. One of the things to really understand with hot air stations is that airspeed really impacts how fast the heat is transferred into the board. But you also have to take into account the fact that you don't want to be blowing components all over the board. And on top of that, a lot of times you don't actually want to heat the board rapidly. For example, this switch motherboard here has a ton of layers in between, and what happens when you heat up one area of the board rapidly is that the other areas around that are colder, and a hot area on the board is going to put tension on those layers in a very different way than the cold areas of the board are, and you're going to start to see the board warp and bend, and this can do things like delaminate the board, and it can even break traces on the layers of the board. So not only do you want to understand how to apply sufficient heat to an area of the board, but how fast to do that in a way that's not going to damage the board or the components. You also have chips like NAND memory on this board, which are going to be significantly more sensitive to heat than something like an inductor would. One of the biggest questions I had when I was just starting was, how do I know what temperature to put on my iron? How do I know what airspeed and temperature to put on my hot air station? And the simplest answer I can give you to that is, you don't know until you start using your damn tools. Because the YouTuber you're watching who's giving you a tutorial on how to replace a specific chip is not going to be able to give you a good answer as to how high you should set your heat on your hot air station, what airspeed you should use, what temperature you should use on your specific soldering station. It depends on the kind of tips you're using. It depends on the tip you're using for your hot air station. It depends on the specific soldering station you're using, how much power is going to the soldering iron. It depends on the specific heating element in your hot air station. It depends on what board you're working on, if you're working on a small board or a large board. There are way too many variables to be able to give a straight answer about that. And instead of asking what specific temperature or airspeed you should be using on your tools, you should be asking yourself, okay, how does heat work in this specific situation? And what do I know about how my specific tools work and how that impacts the situation at hand and the decisions I should be making as to what temperature I should be using, what kind of tips I should be using, what kind of airspeed I should be using. So I could go on for like 2 hours about how heat transfer works and how much of a fundamental it is for understanding how to use your tools and how to go about soldering well while you're working on a motherboard. Number 5, all of the pros that you see on YouTube or anywhere else are always constantly learning too. One of the biggest mistakes that I made early on when I was starting was comparing myself to people like Louis Rossman, Soren from Electronics Repair School, Richard from Learn Electronics Repair. These are all people that I look up to a significant amount, and I just never saw myself doing this stuff at the level that they were doing it at. And don't get me wrong, these guys have significantly more experience than I do, and maybe than I ever will. And I still have a significant amount that I can learn from these guys. But that being said, I had to put it in perspective that these guys are all still learning. Like, there are new technologies coming out every day. There are new measures that manufacturers are putting in place to prevent repair. And no matter who you are in this space, you have to be constantly learning and honing your craft. And there's not specific people who have made it or figured all of it out. Yes, there are people with experience. Yes, you should be paying attention to what they have to say. Yes, you should be learning from them. But my point here is that I used to think there was this massive gap in knowledge between me, who only knew how to solder headphone wires together 10 years ago, and the people who I was watching on YouTube who are reballing and replacing Southbridge chips on a console. When in reality, the only thing stopping me from learning that stuff was my own perspective that they were so far ahead of me that I would never be able to learn how to do that kind of thing. But let me tell you, all of these people are still learning every single day that they're doing this stuff. And if you do get into the space, you have to be learning every day, and you have to be honing your craft every day. And there's absolutely no reason to stop yourself from doing that and learning that stuff just because there's someone out there who knows significantly more than you. Because at the end of the day, that person was where you are right now at some point in their life, and they made the decision, damn it, I'm just going to start doing this stuff and learning it. But that does bring me to my next point, which is number 6, which is extremely important. Know your limit. Everyone has their limit, and you need to know yours. One of my all-time favorite videos is this video by Soren. Please go watch this if you haven't seen this. I put a link in the description to this video. He does an absolutely beautiful job explaining how your limitation as a technician is not a bad thing, and it's actually really important that you do know your limitations. And everyone has limitations. My absolute favorite YouTubers are people like Soren who have insane amounts of experience in repair, yet they still understand when to stop. And not just to know when to stop, but to be completely comfortable knowing that they gave everything they could to that device. And Soren is at peace when he puts something down and doesn't want to work on it anymore. He's not like restless at night thinking about that one device he couldn't fix because he knows his limitations and he chooses to put certain things down, and he is at peace with that. This is one of those things that I think just separates an amazing technician from the rest. It's someone who not just really knows their capabilities, but who knows their limits. Being able to look your client in the face and say, I can't fix this. I don't know how to fix this in a way that's going to be financially reasonable for me or for you. And then even better, if you do know somebody else who does have that specific expertise and can fix that device for the customer in a reasonable amount of time with a reasonable amount of money, point that customer towards that person. Because at the end of the day, you're not losing anything. You're probably going to lose lots of time and money on that device. And there are people who specialize in things for a reason. For a few years, I was really scared to jump into the world of offering repair as a service because I felt like I didn't know enough. When in reality, the reason I was scared to do that wasn't because I didn't know enough. It was because I just didn't have enough experience to know exactly where my limits were and to be comfortable defining those limits to a customer. Really great example here. There are plenty of people who offer laptop repair who know nothing about soldering, and they run very successful businesses doing so. And they're able to do that because when a motherboard dies and they don't have the experience or knowledge to diagnose the fault and fix it, they don't want to do that. They have a business to run. They have all this other stuff to learn about. The people who are repairing laptops at this level have a set of knowledge that I do not have. Even though I am good at motherboards and diagnosing faults on a motherboard, I simply do not have the same skill set as someone who's running a laptop repair business for 20 years and learning how to repair laptops in an efficient way. And as long as they know their limits and know when to send that customer to a microsoldering expert for data recovery instead of telling them that their data's lost and that they need to buy this brand new laptop, that person is running a successful business in my mind. And this sort of perspective really helped me focus in on specific things that I wanted to be good at and wanted to provide a service for, But then, very, very importantly, know my limits and know when to pass that customer off to someone else who knows what they're doing in that specific niche. For example, I'm really, really good with console repair or laptop repair, but if you bring me a hard disk drive and it has platter damage, I am not touching that. And I'm going to direct you towards someone like HUD Recovery Services, who has insane amounts of experience with this kind of thing. So sorry for the long point, but I think this is a really, really important topic that needs to be talked about a little bit more in this space. And it's going to, I think, help a lot of technicians hone in on specific niches that they're really good at and provide those services to their customers, and is ultimately going to make the repair space a lot more collaborative. Number 7, a lot of people in this space like to say that not everything is worth fixing. While I definitely agree with this statement, I want to kind of amend that statement for this point and say that worth fixing looks different for everybody. If you're someone who just has a specific set of skills and you only want to sell those specific skills as a service, then anything outside of that realm is probably not worth fixing. There's probably not a really great reason for that person to be focusing on a device for 10 hours that's outside of that set of skills that they have that they don't necessarily want to learn. Now take that same device and give it to someone who is new in the space of repair and wants to learn how to fix things, and they aren't selling that specific skill set as a service yet that they might want to later on. This device for that specific person, in my mind, is absolutely worth fixing. The amount of knowledge gained by that individual to dive in, spend the 10, 20 hours fixing that device is going to serve that individual significantly more than the money gained from actually selling that device once you fix it, etc. Obviously, it should go without saying that, when you're expanding your knowledge and working on stuff that you're not comfortable with, that's outside of your limits, it should be a board that you own, that you don't mind breaking, etc., etc. So the statement that everyone is saying that not everything is worth fixing, while it definitely has truth to it and definitely does apply, worth fixing looks different for everybody. Number 8, I'm going to keep this one short and simple. BGA rework is not nearly as scary as it seems or as it is made up to be. It just takes time, patience, and practice like anything else in this space. It also takes having the right kinds of tools. And I'm going to branch this out into not just BGA rework, but all of those things that you don't currently know how to do that look really scary. Generally, if you want to learn how to do it, once you start diving into it and picking it apart, it just takes time, patience, and practice like any other set of skills. But I did want to specifically shout out BGA rework because it was something for me, and I think for a lot of other people in this space, that's kind of like the big boogeyman of repair, is like BGA rework, ooh, and reballing, ooh. And you have to have this $20,000 rework machine to do BGA stuff. This is absolutely not the case. Really, all you need to understand with BGA rework is how heat functions, going back to the other point, and having the right tools and just taking the time and practice to get good at it. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of my initial videos are on BGA rework, is because I want to sort of break this mold that it is a difficult thing to do. You just need to take the time to learn how to do it. Number 9, another short one, buy your consumables in bulk. Once you find something that you like, buy small amounts of things while you're testing them out. But once you find something you like, buy a ton of it so that you don't have to think about it anymore. I think this primarily goes for like people who are planning to do this stuff as a business. But even if you're doing it as a hobby on a regular basis, like just buy your alcohol in bulk, buy your Q-tips in bulk, buy your wipes in bulk. Obviously, make sure you like the stuff first. Gloves, buy your gloves in bulk. It just saves you so much time and energy. Like, you're not running out of things constantly that you're always using. You have like a bunch of it over there and you don't have to worry about using as much as you want. This stuff is generally relatively cheap, and buying it in bulk is going to save you money and primarily going to save you time. And it's going to make it easy for you to just like not have to think about how much flux you have left or how many Q-tips you have left, and just to work on the stuff that you want to work on. And finally, point 10, and this is kind of the opposite of my first point, which was to stop watching YouTube and do repairs. This is the other side of that. Stop doing repairs and watch people who are better than you at the stuff that you're trying to learn how to do. I think there is a healthy balance of research and learning how to do stuff from people who are better than you and doing it yourself. And on top of that, watch as many different kinds of people as you can find. If you're someone like me who really likes to learn stuff by themselves, YouTube is an absolute goldmine for microsoldering. There are plenty of people with decades and decades of experience just freely sharing their knowledge out there for you to just learn and digest. And it is just mind-blowing how much you get to skip as an individual by having these people as resources and watching them do what they're doing. Stuff that you would take normally like 2 years to learn how to do yourself and brute force the knowledge yourself, you can now skip those 2 years and watch all sorts of different kinds of repair channels. Don't just focus on one. All of these different repair technicians have different ways of approaching problems, and watching each of their perspectives on repair is incredibly helpful, especially when you're just starting. And I'm going to give a shout out here to a few repair channels that I highly recommend. I'll start quickly with Joey Does Tech. This guy's awesome. He said one of my favorite things in a recent stream, that you could give a device to all of these different repair channels and they'll tackle it completely differently, and you'll learn different stuff from all of them. And I can't agree more with this statement. And Joey is someone who really understands the concept of knowing his limits. He's got an incredibly healthy and fun community. He just has a great time with repairs, and you get to sort of follow him on his learning journey. And I think there is no better source of education than watching someone actively learning a skill. Joey is just absolutely killing it. He streams all the time. You get to celebrate with him when he fixes something, and it's just a really fun community to be a part of. Someone I probably don't have to shout out is Louis Rossman, but I do want to push this specific playlist of his that I absolutely love. I think this playlist is phenomenal if you're just starting in electronics repair, or even if you're someone who's been doing this for 10 years. This is just such a great series. I love Louis's presentation style in this series. He's focused on teaching you instead of digging into like the science and things of actual components and circuits. This dude is actually able to explain things in a way that you're going to actually understand. And this is just such a beautiful playlist of videos that I highly recommend checking out. So I'll have a link for this in the description. Another like must watch is this series from Richard from Learn Electronics Repair. He does huge deep dives on each individual component. Richard has experience fixing all kinds of different stuff. He comes from a background of fixing just literally anything that gets thrown in front of him. And he just has such a wealth of knowledge about all these different components. And he does just such an amazing job like drawing and explaining and showing you how current flows through specific circuits, how all of these individual components often fail, how they work. And if you have the time, I recommend watching every single hour of this series. It is absolutely phenomenal. Another person I probably don't need to shout out is the GOAT Soren from Electronics Repair School. This dude is the epitome of being able to always bring it back down to fundamentals, back down to Ohm's Law, and how to actually use Ohm's Law to fix things instead of just throwing yourself at a repair. If you want to learn how to be analytical and approach troubleshooting step by step, and learn how to apply actual electronics fundamentals to how you approach your troubleshooting and repairs, there's no person better than Soren to walk you through that. And just a few quick shout outs. I love HDD Recovery Services videos. This dude is insane with data recovery, and he gives you such a great peek into the world of professional data recovery, and he really knows what he's doing. He's got a lot of experience with data recovery, so definitely check his stuff out. Chris Fix Germany, another just straight up professional with GPU repair. If you're interested in repairing GPUs, this guy does some insane repairs. He digs like multiple layers into cracked PCBs on GPUs and repairs them. It is mind-blowing some of the stuff he does to get these GPUs working. SteatoFix, another really great repair channel. This dude has just such an elegant way of approaching troubleshooting, and his presentation style and videos are just super clean and really nice to watch. So I definitely recommend checking out his stuff, especially if you like console repair. This guy is also always on forums and like helping people. I see his name everywhere, constantly helping the community. He's just so collaborative, and I just have a lot of respect for him. If you're interested in phone repair, Edgar I Repair, this dude has a huge channel in Spanish and just started making videos in English. The production quality of his videos are just absolutely beautiful, and his ability to teach things is just a beautiful thing to watch. So if you're interested at all in mobile repair, or even if you're not, definitely recommend checking this dude out. And then there's this guy who's just absolutely not from this world when it comes to repair. If you haven't seen YCS's shorts and some of the stuff he does to fix chips, this dude just like digs into ICs and repairs like the actual traces going from the IC. Look at that. Look how insane this is. I cannot believe some of the stuff he does. But yeah, if you're looking for a channel that just has absolutely unmatched skills for soldering, definitely check this guy out. He's ridiculous. This guy's just on another level entirely. So I hope that was a helpful video for some of you guys who are just getting started with this stuff. I just wanted to share some of the stuff I struggled with early on and some of the stuff I wish I knew when I was diving into it from the get-go. But as always, I appreciate you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.